Your new business, it's launched and growing. Hooray! Now it's time to add new team members. Do you have an effective strategy and structure in place to create a happy team? Because we all know a happy team equals happy customers. Our guest, he's dedicated to putting employees first and will show you how this key strategy will create a successful, profitable business for you and a happy environment for you and your employees and your team. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fab Founder Friday on the Startup Life Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, startup coach to first-time founders. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now help newly minted business owners sleep through the night by giving them peace of mind. And that's right, using my Andelicious strategies, solutions, insights, and inspiration. These founders are building profitable and sustainable businesses without spending a fortune or wasting valuable time. And I am so delighted you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game. We are streaming live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, thanks to the oh so delicious StreamYard platform. And for those of you tuning in live, please use this opportunity to expand your network, because after all, this really is an online networking event. I mean, I don't know about where you are, but here in Boston, we don't have any in-person networking events. I miss everybody. So connect with each other on LinkedIn and follow each other on social media, because you never know where the next collaboration will come from. And if you know someone who would benefit from our conversation today, please tag them so they can join us, okay? Thank you so much. And hey, for those of you watching the replay, I am so delighted you tuned in as well. Thank you for investing in you and your business. Please be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification button so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video or when I go live. Thank you. So I'm so excited to share today's guest with you. I met Anthony Vaughan again online because I'm busy networking out there online, and I ran into this amazing man, and you'll see his smile is going to bring you right in to who he is. But let me share just a little bit about what he's doing and what he's been up to over the years with his business. So Anthony Vaughan, aka AJ, is an out-of-the-box strategist and radical hybrid who is obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and employee experience. And he's a current 3-time founder, startup advisor, executive, and proud son. His focus and dedication is on putting employees first. AJ is currently working on a brand right there on your screen. You see it, the E1B2 Collective, a human-first company built to change the way organizations, especially startups and small brands, design work, implement employee experience, and most of all, help change the impact work has on the individual employee. I got to tell you, I love that something fierce. I'm all about happy employees and people feeling fulfilled at the workplace. Hello, Anthony Vaughan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm so happy to see you. I love that, we connected online and started building a relationship and started creating engagement with each other and talking, et cetera. And so I want to take a little moment to say hi to folks who are tuning in. Just a quick hello to Aaron Weisblack. Good to see you. So happy you're back home safely. Film documentary director, producer, everything. So that's the ultimate entrepreneur, right? And here's the woman who makes all my graphics look amazing, the Canva goddess herself, Nikki Pasquier. How are you, Nikki? She's from across the pond, AJ, in England. And Vivian Green, oh my gosh, hi. Good to see you. And see, they're talking amongst each other. Vivian, thank you.
There we go.
What I'm talking about. We're going to click on your LinkedIn and we're going to make sure we're all connected with you. And those of you who are watching on the replay, come on, grab that and see what's going on with Vivian. So AJ, I know I ask this from all my entrepreneurs, especially on Founder Friday. What were you thinking? I mean, to become an entrepreneur, what's the matter with you? Going off payroll and launching a business. What happened? What compelled you to do this?
I tell people all the time, I have no idea how I got here. No idea why I'm talking to you right now, if I'm being honest. I don't really know how this happened. But I guess I can give you a little bit of the origin story. So I attended university. I was a former football player, did decently well. But in my sophomore year, dad passed away. A lot of personal things were going on. And so I decided to come home. And so when I came home, I was pondering what my next move was, supporting my mother, supporting my family, just trying to figure out what was going to be the next step, what was going to be the next kind of move in my overall career. Because I know for a fact I did not want to go back to university from an academic standpoint. And then I also realized that I probably wasn't going to go to the NFL either. So that wasn't really an option either. And so I decided to start a year-round football academy. And I started that company really off the basis of a couple things. Number one, I knew I needed a little bit more development growing up as an athlete. And I was trying to figure out ways to make that happen for others that were in my position. And then number two, there was nothing in the market that was even close to where I was living at the time. And so I created it. I built out a really great partnership with Under Armour. I great out a really great partnership with a lot of other mentors and leaders in the space. And over the next 18 months or so, we built out a really nice brand, and it was really successful in certain pockets. And inevitably, I made a mistake that I'll talk to you guys about later on this show. But yeah, that's what kind of got me started. I don't really know. I wasn't, the guy or the kid that was selling lemonade or doing different things like that. I kind of just fell into it through a personal tragic situation and just no desire to go back to traditional school.
I understand completely. Everyone knows that I was the reluctant entrepreneur. Business ideas came to my door like a stray cat and yowled until I let them in. I was just like, what am I doing here? But you're right. We get inspired by different ways. So how did this lead to where you are today? You flowed through that. How did you end up where you are with the E1B2 Collective?
Yeah, let me keep that part of it really tight. I tend to go on, so please cut me off if I tend to go on too long. So made a strategic partnership with Under Armour, which was amazing. Still to this day, I'm so thankful for that. Made a strategic partner with a guy named Seth. Now, Seth was an agility coach in the company. I looked at him as a partner, but he wasn't a financial partner. He wasn't given any equity. And so at a certain point when success was coming, he brought me up and said, look, I would love to be a partner in this business. I would love to have some sort of an equity in this brand. Me being arrogant, me not understanding employee experience and what a thoughtful one-on-one is, or what a career mapping strategy and process is, or even at a human level, just what it means to live into someone's reality, help them unpack what they inevitably want to do in their career. Didn't know any of those things. So I adamantly declined even the conversation of it. Didn't hear him. 30 days later, he left the business. Within like 48 seconds, and I mean that literally, business really went to zero. Was getting emails upon emails of parents, kids, sponsors leaving the organization. For those that don't know, before you jump in, that is a very fickle brand, business rather. The sports sector, the agility and sports training sector is very fickle. They kind of chase the hot athletes, the hot brands. And so, but I made a big mistake. I take full ownership of it. And inevitably, I went down a very deep rabbit hole of unpacking what I did wrong. So leadership, employee experience were those two kind of buckets that I wanted to unpack and learn more. And it led me to where I am today. So that was the beginning of it.
I'm going to give you a round of applause for keeping that clean and succinct and lean. Great explanation. And also thank you for sharing those huge mistakes. I'm always a little leery of those founders who just go, oh, and I had this success and that success. I made no mistakes and this happened and I cashed out. I'm like, success doesn't teach you anything, folks. And it's some of these big mistakes that lead you to some incredible experience that now you're able to share and maybe even monetize. Yeah. And you brought up that great point of having someone like that come on and say, I'd like to invest in the business. What do you think it was that you were, because you were going to be afraid or concerned about? What was it about him coming on into the business that had you concerned?
Well, that's the thing. It actually wasn't a concern. He was the foundation of why the business were where it was at that point. For me, it was a lot of ego. I wasn't like my other friends. I wasn't a 19, 20-year-old kid at university, BSing on social media, hanging out at the bars. I was really building a business. I was an operator. And so I had this ego, this perception of myself that I was greater and that I didn't need any more additional help. And I got really bad advice from a person that we're not even going to get into that. Yeah. And they told me, they don't deserve, and they, meaning Seth, he doesn't deserve a partnership. He wasn't, serving food and being a busboy 18 hours a day, and you would leave to go and take meetings and sneak to the bathroom to do calls and send emails. Like, he wasn't hustling as hard as you were hustling. Why does he deserve that equity? What has he done? And again, being now much older and much more senior, I now realize, he was the linchpin to the Under Armour contract. All he really wanted to do was have a nice, thoughtful one-on-one and sit down for a nice steak dinner and talk about his career. So ego was really the main issue for me personally. There was nothing wrong with Seth.
Yeah. And thank you for your honesty and transparency. Yeah. Seriously. We've all been there. Come on, folks, raise your hand when you've made a bonehead decision based on fear or other people giving you some really lousy advice. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Now, these mistakes are our lived experiences that make us more aware, and you got to put a bookmark in that chapter. You can go back to it occasionally, of course, but don't let it rule your life. Oh boy. And let's have a high five for anybody and a thumbs up for anybody who's let a past experience rule them today. I mean, they'll crop up, but you have to kick them off the bus.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you decided that the employee, okay, Nikki's like, yes, countless times. I understand completely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about how this all led to your deeper understanding about employees being so important to any organization. And when you make them first, they're important. How did the concept of E1B2, and explain, first of all, what that means, E1B2 and the collective, and talk about how this sort of bubbled up, surfaced, and you turned it into a way to make money, a business, and a way to serve the world with your specific understanding and knowledge.
I'll speed through about 7 years to get to the punchline. So E1B2 stands for Employees First, Business Second. I'll have a very spirited debate any day of the week with anyone that wants to tell me that's not true or not the way to go. But let me go back a second. So when I made that mistake, I went down a very deep depression/curiosity rabbit hole. So I started studying 3 hours a day that I still do to this day. You can ask my girlfriend who's in the other room. I don't care if it's her birthday, Christmas, Kwanzaa. I don't care what's going on here. I have to get my 3 hours in. And I started researching employee experience, HR, and I started realizing and noticing certain aspects about HR that I didn't agree with, certain aspects of employee experience that I didn't agree with. And then I thought about the mistake that I made, and I thought about what was going on. And I said, employees should come first. And what does that mean operationally? And so as I was building other brands, because I went on to start a couple other companies as well, as I went on to start some other brands, I kept that in the back of my head. I kept studying, I kept researching. And then inevitably, I did what a lot of people took as a surprise. I ended my business at the time that was a partnership consultancy firm. I closed that door and I took a completely right turn, and I decided to be the VP of people for a startup. So I had a lot of information in my head around employee experience. I had a point of view around this E1B2 methodology that I now have. 5 years of 3 hours a day, 7 days a week of research. And then I coupled that with my very much of an operational entrepreneurial, skill set, right? And so when I applied for the job, the guy told me, I'll never forget, he said, I've never really seen anyone with a point of view around employee experience that is very different and nuanced, coupled with the operational skills that you have. So I did that. I was a VP of people for the last 5 years. And then to get to the punchline, guys, the reason why I started the E1B2 Collective is when COVID-19 hit, like millions of Americans and millions of people across the world, I was furloughed, I lost my job. And so I decided to start a company. The E1B2 Collective is an incredibly simple business model. And when I say we, I have 3 co-founders for each initiative. There's 6 companies at one time being built, trying to improve the world of work. One of them is very exciting for us, and we decide to go inside of startups, go inside of small businesses, and really flip their entire HR strategic approach around people operations function on its head and get them to more of a strategic approach to HR through the lens of employee experience, through the lens of that E1B2 methodology that we've kind of curated and that we care a lot about. And then along the way, I'll wrap it up this way. I've been doing a lot of speaking. I have a podcast, doing a lot of other things. So that's how I inevitably got where I am today.
Wow, that's a wonderful launch story.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that some of us, put out the shingle on our own or take over, you are leveraging 2 other, how many other co-founders?
So there's 3 co-founders per initiative. So there's 6 initiatives total. So there's a collective, like a big unit of this.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that makes it sometimes a little more complicated, but at the same time, you're going to get where you're going faster when you leverage and collaborate, right?
Yeah.
And so you came up with this idea, you got other people involved with it.
Yeah.
How did you then know which companies to approach? How did you know if they were having any problems? How did you know they would be interested?
Well, that's an interesting thing. So a couple of things. So I've gone on LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, all the platforms. And if you look at some of the wording, you can usually tell when a company's looking for that first VP of people, that first strategic HR person. They'll use certain words, they'll use certain phrases, or they may just come out and say it. And so within my network, in my partners' networks, and then through that very out of the box strategy, we just started reaching out to companies and just starting to get a sense of if they agreed with our point of view, if they agreed with what we were trying to conduct, because that's really the type of company we want to work for. We want to work with a company that is just deciding to bring on that first strategic partner from a people operations function. And then we've been building a lot of partnerships with angel investors, venture capital, incubators, accelerators, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, I love that. That makes a lot of sense, AJ, because certainly on the investor VC end, they're going to know that their folks are ready and that they're positioned to receive your type of information and guidance. So let's talk about how a company from day one, or if they've been in business for a while, can improve their culture so that it's an employee first company. Like, how does this happen? What's the structure? What do you implement? What are the systems and procedures?
Yeah, so pretty much, well, first and foremost, we do a complete audit, right? So there's 10 or 15 questions that we ask that dive into what we call the people operations function. So a couple of those categories is a category we call organizational design, change, and governance. So that goes into decision-making processes. How do you guys come up with new ideas, change management, meeting structures? Then we go into strategic planning, concepts like people strategy, employee life cycle, strategic workforce planning. Then we go into talent acquisition. What does your employer branding look like? What is your interviewing toolkit if you even have one? What is your onboarding process that is completely empathetic and thoughtful? I'll give you guys one more: our rewards and advancement. Our rewards and advancement structure. So we look at benefit strategy, rewards and recognition, advancement criteria. So but before I go on, let me make it very clear. Everything I just said is very traditional in the world of HR, and it's not out of the box. What's out of the box and what's different about what we're doing and how we go in with these audits is everything we're doing is focused around how can we get the most productivity out of the employee first, through empathetically understanding how they see these things, where they want to go in their career, what they want to do, right? So we're talking about career mapping. We're talking about thoughtful employee one-on-ones. We're talking about, really diving into thoughtful conversations and getting some of that data to understand where they're coming from, how they see their organization, what type of a decision-making processes they would work well in, what type of managers from a leadership perspective and a personality perspective they would work well in. And so we go to the employee first and get the data and the points of views and the perspectives that they have. And then we couple that with our best practices, our frameworks, and we smash them together to then have an approach for the organization. A lot of other HR solutions and brands that are similar, they'll do the company first, best practices and frameworks at a macro level, and then hope and pray and cross fingers that it impacts the employees at a beneficial rate based off of random data and facts.
So typically you've got the vision and the mission. Everybody, this is how we're talking. This is our messaging. This is our culture. Get on board. How do you get the employees to feel safe enough to talk to you? I mean, you are a third party, which is great, but that level of privacy, especially, you don't want to, as an employee, upset anybody.
No.
How does that work?
So the way that we're doing it and the way that we will continue to do it, and I will be honest, I personally, being the VP of people, have gotten some pushback from executives that I've worked with as an employee, and then now as a like you said, a third party kind of outside consultant. All the information that is shared with us, we keep exclusively with the employee to the E1B2 Collective, to the employee to the VP of people, like I was in my previous roles. I look at it very much like a lawyer would handle a certain situation, or a therapist would handle a certain situation. I understand that emotional glue, trust, connection, empathy is needed to be able to break through the BS. And so the BS from my standpoint is the politically correct statements, the perspectives an employee shares that are very surface level because they don't want to get in trouble. So what we try to do is we try to make it very clear to the client. And then when I was an employee, I made it very clear to my executives, the data that I'm pulling from these employees, you'll never know who it's coming from. You'll never know where exactly it's coming from. I am getting this data because they have felt safe enough and they know that I'm going to live into the reality, live into what they need, and I'm going to support them from that lens. You're not going to know if it's Derek, Cornelius, Andrew, Susan. You're not going to know who it is. Let's just look at the reality of what this data says, and then let's make empathetic choices and strategies based off of that truth. So that's one way that we do it.
And AJ, can you share some examples of the BS that you were talking about? The politically correct, the surface level conversation, probably buzzwords that people might use.
Yeah. I mean, I can give.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous because I don't want to call any, because I know a lot of people that I work with or previously worked with may watch this. So I'm just thinking, I'll give you a very surface one. I'll give you something that people say, nope, everything's great here. Love my boss, love my employee, love the company. Everything's perfect, no complaints. Like that's, and again, I know that's probably not helpful, but at the same time, though, we can all admit we probably have heard that from employees or coworkers that we work with, where they get brought in for a one-on-one and they have nothing bad to say. They have nothing at all to say, really. They're like, oh, no, everything's fine. I'm fine. Company's fine. Manager's fine. I just want to get out of this meeting now. So.
And I have to imagine it's hard to have a culture where someone could feel safe. I mean, look, I've run into people who'd be happy to tell you what's wrong and their advice on how you can fix it. I've certainly had employees like that on my team who had no problem coming to tell me. And I was, part of me wanted to say, look, is your signature on that paycheck every month? I don't think so.
I like to, and I don't have the data right in front of me, but I see 25% of those very outgoing, very excited employees that are, so grateful to see the E1B2 coming in or to see me coming in. So I do get a lot of them, but I would say 25%. The 75% are people that they just honestly, they don't want to say the wrong thing. Or let me give you another phase. There's a brand that we have in our collective that's called Beyond Brand that I'll get into another day. But the essence, the core, the energy of that is some employees don't even know these things should be happening. Like some employees don't even know that it's the company's duty to let you know about the process of how to go from where you are now to where you want to be inevitably in 5 years within the company, and to put a thoughtful learning and development plan in place that is empathetic to your learning style. So some employees don't even know what they don't know. And so that's what I've also found. It's like, wow, you guys don't even know the company should be doing these things. So I
love that. Something fierce. Who else has got a thumbs up for that piece of comment? That piece of advice from AJ. Oh my gosh. And so here, you're getting people to open up. So you're asking the right questions, you're enlightening them, you're helping them understand they're part of this company's success, not just filling a role or a hole in the company. Yes?
Yeah. I make it incredibly clear to them, guys. This company, big or small, and remember, we're talking startup companies now. We're talking to no company that we work with or will work with is over, let's call it 275 employees. So you and I both know these companies could close their doors for like a series of mistakes. These companies could very well go to zero. And so I make it incredibly clear to these employees, you guys are the foundation of these companies. Not at a nice to have statement, not as a, I want to make you feel good, at a very literal level. Your ideas, your innovation, your thoughtful decision making, your hard work, your sacrifice is what's keeping these lights on. Now, don't get me wrong. The founders and the executives and the investors and all these other people play a role, but you guys play an incredibly big role. And so I want to make this experience for you beneficial for your long-term focus in career, because I know if we can blend the two, that it's going to be a win-win for everyone involved.
Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I was taking notes, everybody. Seriously, because especially for you startup founders and you're beginning to build out your team, and especially, you haven't really been employed that much. I mean, AJ, one of my favorite stories is Squarespace. Okay. He launched Squarespace in college. And so when I heard Guy Raz's interview with the founder, he was like, look, I had never worked anywhere. So so he didn't even know what things to do with building a team out. And he had brought on people that really didn't know it well either.
Yeah.
So founders, I just want you to take this in and how important it is. I know you can feel like, oh my God, I've only got so much runway. I've got to hire somebody and get this project done or fix this tech challenge we're having, whatever, get marketing in place. You still have to do what AJ's talking about. And that's the thoughtful process. I'm bringing people in with the focus that these employees are part of the foundation of your business and their success is so important to your business's success. Yes, AJ?
100%. And if I can just add one last thing before you ask another question, I want to make this clear too. When I hear, I was talking to over this holiday weekend, this past weekend, I was talking to a friend and we were having a couple of drinks. And so he was opening up a bit. And I was like, why do you love your job? And he was like, well, I have great benefits and great time off. And, I work with great people. And what I had to enlighten him, I said, look, that is amazing. And I am so thankful of that. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is I had to explain to him that is an inevitable piece of culture. And what a really big piece of culture really is again, going into decision-making processes. Do you feel like you have the autonomy to restructure your role to best fit the way that you learn or how you're trying to bring value to the company? Do you have the ability to be flexible within your role and maybe even pivot completely within your organization? And will the organization support you in that effort? So I think a lot of employees and a lot of companies think if they pay well, if they have great traditional benefits, if they have foosball tables and really cool people that are walking around the office with cool clothes on, that's a great company to work for. It's so much deeper than that. It's very operational. Not
right.
From the aesthetics.
I got to tell you, I don't know if you're taking these in, folks, but employees, you got to raise your expectations. and founders, you want your employees empowered because at the end of the day, the benefits they can get anywhere, but how you make them feel, priceless. Or as Maya would say, that's what they're going to remember. That's what's going to juice them up inside, that trust and faith and relationship where they feel that they're part of all of this. So how does a company do course correction? So you're in there, maybe they've had a few hires and they've set the culture or traditionally, like here's the mission, here's the vision, here's what we're going to do. And you go, we got to fix this. How do you go about that? And because, founders, they can be very tunnel vision. If you're not part of the solution, get out of my way for the product and the marketing and all of that and raising money and getting more customers. How do you do the course correction?
I won't go too down a deep rabbit hole because I don't want to ran for too long, but I'll give you one practical thing that we do that I think is a little bit different, that a lot of people actually catch them off guard. Early in my career as a VP of people, my first probably 9 months or so, I had very animated, frustrating conversations with my founder. That was my direct report. My direct report was the CEO. And I had a lot of animated conversations with that individual because I was trying to change his human behavior without, number one, building any emotional glue and trust. But more than that, I was trying to change his narrative, change his point of view on life within an instant. And so what I realized what we need to do with the E1B2 Collective and what we do is I meet a founder, I meet an executive, I meet an investor where they are. I meet them where they are. And so what I mean by that is, let me pick up one of the things that we focus on. So let's say we're going into decision-making structures and processes and best practices, right? And so I'll just start asking questions, scenario. If Susan comes up with a completely new idea how you guys need to execute your digital marketing function, but they inevitably are not the CMO, they're just a part of the inevitable structure. Will you live into her idea? Will you live into her tactic? Will you live into her thoughts? Or do you want her to just play a role? Talk to me about what you feel right here when I ask you that question. And then I'll ask the CMO that question. Talk to me about what are you feeling inside of your body when I ask you that direct question? And then they may say, no, I'm 15, 20 years in this space. I really just want them to share their point of view, share their thoughts, share their perspectives, and kind of just follow along with the trend. Or no, I will give complete autonomy. I will allow them to share their perspectives. I will allow them to dive in. I actually hired them because they have a very unique skill set that I don't have, since I've been in the space for 30 years. But, the marketing space looks a little bit different right now. Or in certain cases, they'll say, no, I am not a fan of that at all. They're here to do a job, whatever the case is. And so the frameworks and the best practices, we try to blend and pair with what the founder or that leader does naturally. And then we'll try to sprinkle in that E1B2 powder, if you will, nice, on the process. Because we don't want to freak them out.
First of all, is everyone like me just loving how AJ shares this information? I mean, I am just glued. And yeah, you can run into those founders who are micromanagers or some who are just too hands off, but you're asking the clarifying questions before you start helping them shift into changing. So I've got to bring in a few comments here from Blair Glazer, executive coach. Blair, you've been adding a lot of value in the comment section. Thank you so much. The people and culture are so easily looked over in building business at a high cost. That's a really good point. And yeah, building, not bilking. Love building. That. Yeah. Here's a question. So what do you suggest, without creating a dependency culture, aka a culture that thinks all their needs should be met by the organization as opposed to the employees meeting the needs of the organization?
We get that a lot. We do get that a lot. I get that a lot. I actually got in a little bit of hot water years ago with a founder. He was like, you know what? Whatever the employee says, you're just going to say yes to. And I said, no, that's actually not true. I try to live into the truth. So I have a podcast about this. So when I design, so I go on both ends, right? So on one end, I try to unpack what the employee inevitably wants and how they see things. And then on the other end, I try to objectively understand and unpack what the founder wants and how they see things. And then there's another end. The third end is what objectively is great for the business and the market. Like what is going to drive the organization forward? And so objectively, based off of data, based off of research, based off of experience and point of views, how can I look at what the employee wants, what the founder wants, and objectively what the company needs, and blend all of them together? And if that makes the employee feel a little uncomfortable, I will always live into that uncomfortability. I will always have empathy. I will always be here to talk things out. But at the end of the day, we will try to make things as contextual and as unique to your personal desires as we can, but it has to add up to making sense for the organization. If it doesn't, then I would suggest you become an employee, right? I mean, become an entrepreneur rather. right? I would suggest you start your own thing from your completely own lens, because you have to fall into the system. But what I'm here to do is find a way to craft that system around your ideal point of views and blend the two. And so I try to be objective on all three fronts. That's why I'll leave it there.
Oh my gosh, but I'm seeing that you guys are serving so many different levels here. You're serving the founder, you're serving the employee, and the whole organization. So, and while you're talking to the team member, you're helping them get a better understanding of who they are, through self-awareness and what's important to them. And if they're giving you certain feedback, you can say, something you might want to consider here based on what I'm seeing and hearing. And same with the founder. And you're helping them, of course, this is what we're all about here at the Startup Life Show, level up their game and be better, because as you do better, folks, your business will do better. So I love that. And yet, Blair, because work causes anxiety. Yeah, if it's stretching the employee. And that's another point too, which is, are they in the right position? Because they may have positioned themselves when they got hired incorrectly as well. Yeah.
Yes. So the positioning is something that is incredibly key, right? So a lot of times if you have employees raising up concerns, it tends to be because not that it's not a good fit for them as being at the company, not that they have a lot of issues with their founder or their manager. Maybe it's the positioning and the happiness of their exact role. And so that's when I would jump back over to the founder and say, look, how flexible can we be around restructuring certain employees within the company right now? You would be so surprised how many founders say, no, I hired them to be in the marketing department. They are going to be in the marketing department. I hired them to be in operations to do X, Y, and Z. I hired them to do X, Y, and Z. And for me, I try to live into practicality. Like, let me make it very simple for you, founder. This person is not happy, not productive, not satisfied, not engaged in this particular role. Based off of their background, based off of their skill sets, we can do a couple things. We can put a learning and development plan to gradually transfer them over into a new role over the next 18 months. Number two, we can find a nice 2 to 3 hour internship stint over the next couple of weeks and months to kind of test and see how they're going to actually operate in this role. Or B or C, we can just really live into what they inevitably want, transfer them over in a timely fashion, and then find someone else to fill their role if we have them. So again, it's very much a blend of empathy, strategy, operations, and just, again, living into the truth. Does this make sense for the business? Does this make sense for the employee? And founder, will you be able to dissolve all ego? Because that's where a lot of this really comes from. A lot of this comes from just ego and how they want to see the world. And so I suggest you don't do that.
Right. Or the bad habits they picked up somewhere else by some pretty awful leadership they may have witnessed. Yeah.
That's another thing too that we talk about, right? I always ask, again, I got myself in hot water early in my career. I got in a debate one day. I said, where did this come from? And he said, what do you mean? I said, who taught you this? Was it your dad, your mom, your first internship, your cousin, your sister? Where did you develop this behavior, this point of view? And so it's a part of a practice too that we have, which is we have to unpack those bad behaviors and those bad habits as well.
So, and I think it's kind of obvious, but I want you to be able to sort of put it all together, which is why the happy employee creates more productivity and a more successful, sustainable business.
If they are in the right role, if they are led by the right type of manager, if they feel like they are heard, if they have benefits and compensation that matches their reality. So here's another thing I'm going to throw everyone off that I get myself in trouble years ago with this, but I've now kind of found my positioning, my footing. Compensation and benefits, please, guys. And I know this is going to freak everyone out. Do not go on LinkedIn. Do not hire an outside consultancy and do your research and figure out what's the most competitive in the market. What do your people actually need? Let me give you guys a practical example. I started a graduation model within the last company that I was working for. I realized based off of operations, cash flow, and margins, we were not going to be able to pay anyone more than $14 an hour, which was the best in the market. But we realized our employees still felt underpaid for whatever reason, right? Now, a very egotistical leader could have said, look, this is the best in the market. Get over it. But you know what I did? Trying to live into their reality, I created a graduation model. I started making partnerships with other organizations that were kind of a brother or a cousin or a sister to a couple other roles that we weren't going to be able to provide to them. And I said, look, give me 18 months. Let me put you in a learning and development plan. Let me put you in an IDP plan. Let me build some partnerships for you. Let me get you an internship. And I promise you, over the next 18 months, I will graduate you out of this company so that you can actually go and make that 45K, go and make that 75K. The engagement, the productivity, the dedication, the excitement, the passion that came out of these employees, like spiked the business. New ideas were coming, processes were more productive. Just you won't imagine. And it was something that the founder was very reluctant to do for a second there. And then as he started seeing the results, he was like, this is just common sense. So
that's really what comes from that. Seriously. Yeah. I've never even heard of that before. And was it hard to graduate them? Was it hard to, I mean, I know you reached out to the community and found places that might be a good fit. That sounds incredibly time consuming.
It was very time consuming on my end. Thank God I had a team to kind of help me out. But then also, again, back to like the objective kind of business needs, the dedication, the engagement, the amount of times I would come to these employees and say, look, I really need you to stay a little bit longer. Hey, look, I really need you to go into the cave, if you will, and come up with a couple of new ideas. We're having some problems here. They were like, 100%, I got you, no problem. Because they were looking forward to their hour-and-a-half internship on a Friday afternoon with the company that inevitably they were going to be graduating to. And again, they just looked at it like, wow, they were treating me like a cousin, like a brother, like a friend, like a husband.
Who cares about their career development?
Yeah. And so, and then on the last thing, I know I'm ranting on the last thing.
Oh, I love this.
If you don't want to put a graduation model in place, here's what I would suggest you do. Let your VP of people, whoever else is involved in that people operations function, come into the conversation, to the strategy, and make a very clear statement. And I have a podcast about this. I have a content about this. Allow them to be a part of the sales conversation, the marketing conversation. If you don't want to graduate employees, if you don't want to do X, Y, and Z, then guess what? If you want to find ways to pay them more money and to have more benefits, don't just shake your head and shrug your shoulders and say, well, we're the best in the market and they're just going to have to get over it. Actually build out new products, new functions, make things happen business-wise, and allocate those additional dollars and put it in your strategy to make your margins a little bit wider and take those extra bit of margins and those carrots and those fruits and start to toss it to your employees at a very strategic and intentional way. So that's a suggestion that I tried to give, and that didn't work. And he put that down. So that's why I created the graduation model. Yeah. And so that's a conversation, again, that a lot of companies are not willing to bring in the VP of people into that conversation.
And folks, this is one of the things I first learned about AJ before I got into the E1B2 Collective, and that is his ability to collaborate and therefore leverage. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, where did you learn that? That ability to, because, so many companies get very insulated and their teams, and they don't look out and say, well, how could I collaborate with this company over here? How could I, work with them over there and leverage what we're doing?
That was a nice pivot there. I can tell you've been doing this a while. That was a nice pivot. So collaboration, partnership, number one, in that role of that people operate, anybody really, forget the whole VP, anyone in a company, you need to have the ability to build relationship and make those transitions. But the skill was developed through how I built my first two companies. My first two companies were all partnerships. I had a partnership consultancy for 2.5 years. So I developed this skill over, let's call it 5 years of day in and day out thinking, strategizing, coming up with new partnership design and strategies that are win-wins for people. And then most importantly, having emotional glue. I have a keynote coming up where I talk solely about emotional glue. Emotional glue at a very simple level is, how do I trust, live into their reality, live into their context, love, appreciate, care about their truth in a very empathetic way and treat them like I would treat anyone else that I know and love in my family and my experiences. I don't believe in putting on your new business suit and coming into the workplace as a different person and treating people like you wouldn't treat a friend outside the office. I don't believe in that. And I believe if you do that enough, and if you help people enough, and you're intentional enough to listen to what they have to say, to strategize and think about their point of views, to respect their point of views, you're going to start to see you're building what, again, like emotional glue, where they're willing to hear you. Their threat responses in their brain are starting to lower. Their ego is starting to get decreased. Their ability to live into what you have to say and be open to your ideas are increasing. There's a lot of benefit.
Whew. Love that. That's going to be a snippet on its own, AJ. I have to tell you, amazing. So, AJ, what has kept you up at night as a founder? And how have you been able to shift your mindset? You know, there's so much uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty in the world right now, everybody. I don't know how we're any of us are getting out of bed. But when you're a founder, there's even more because there's no guarantees for you, for your business, for anything. As AJ had talked about earlier, will we have enough payroll to get through this period? So, there's a lot of different pressures, but there's also, just the basic insecurities that being human bring into the equation when you're a founder, because you're learning so much new. Everything is new. Every day seems new. What can you share with folks? Some mindset hacks, and also, you're such a transparent, authentic person, which I just love, and so candid. When have you felt unsure as a founder, and how did you shift?
Yeah, I mean, it happens at least once a week, guys. Me being only 30 years old is something that's an insecurity with me right now. Me building companies really through a partnership collaborational lens and not really having a skill as an operator to build brands through any other ways significantly is something that I worry about, because when you build brands through partnerships, once you ink enough partnerships and get the deals done, the speed in which you can grow the brand accelerates. But you got to remember, you're dealing with human beings. You're not throwing money into product. You're not throwing money into partnerships. You're not throwing money into a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn ad or Instagram ad or things of that nature. And so it takes a little bit longer to kind of get the ball rolling. And so that's an insecurity. I'm always questioning, am I going about it the right way? Is it really worth it to take this long? I'm often looking at other founders that are building different types of companies and kind of envious at times of how quickly they're growing it. But the way I kind of get over all of that is
comparison never works, everybody. Just saying.
No, I get it. The way I get over that, long story short, is anytime I feel like my head hurting from just the stress or the doubting, I just take a moment to pause. I shut down the day. People that know me, please, I apologize. I am not afraid of canceling a meeting. Not the last minute, that's rude, but I am not afraid to cancel a meeting 10 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours. If I'm not feeling it, if I can feel that doubt or that insecurity creeping in, I'm not one to just push through. And I don't do that. I gotta let my brain relax. I went down this deep rabbit hole of neuroscience for 3 years. And so I very much understand the disservice I'm doing to the meeting and to myself long term if I just push through and force myself to get through something. So I am not afraid to pause things and cut the day off short.
I love that, something fierce. It's so easy to get absolutely exhausted from our work in the world. And you're going to have moments where the energy is not there. And AJ is 110% right in that you take a pause, you shut down, and know that you're going to get up the next day and be ready to go again, ready to glow again.
Yeah.
But if you try pushing through, you're not bringing your best work, and you're going to stumble and fall as a result. So thank you.
100%.
AJ, how can we support you in your business? The Startup Life community, we're all founders trying to figure it out. How can we add wind to your sails?
A couple of ways. You can listen to the E1B2 podcast. That would be amazing. It's a podcast where I typically bring on a lot of like VP of people, CHROs, but now I'm actually starting to bring on founders and investors and angel investors and all different types of people from the startup community. Because I want to ask them a few questions. I want to see how they're looking at it, see how they're thinking about things that I talk about. I want to learn from them. So that's helpful. And then another way you guys can help me, honestly, is if there's ever a moment where a lot of the things that I'm talking about, you guys want to unpack, you guys want to think about it a little bit more, just ping me on LinkedIn. I am always open to having a conversation. Don't be afraid. I am not a pushy guy. I am really about building a relationship for the next 10 years. So it's not about me trying to sell you anything. It's really just me trying to help. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, I'm sure it'll happen at some point. So that's how you can help me.
Great. And I've put everything, all the links to follow AJ everywhere he goes, LinkedIn, Twitter, and also his podcast. Because I mean, who wouldn't want to listen to this and phenomenal advice and insight as we did today? What a sincere pleasure, AJ, having you in. And folks, thank you for tuning in and grabbing the advice, the nuggets that you need to make sure your business moves forward and you have a team that is happy. There's a lot of exploring. It may feel like a lot of work on top of everything else that you're doing, but you've got to trust me and definitely trust AJ. This is the most important work for the foundation of your business, because your business will not move forward without the right team members and also taking care of your team members and knowing what their needs are. If you have any questions for AJ, ping him on LinkedIn, put the questions in the comments, and we'll get them answered for you as soon as possible. And for those of you watching the replay, again, I am so thrilled that you tuned in and up to your founder game. Be sure to click on that subscribe button and on the bell icon. I really, really appreciate it. And I invite you too, if you are struggling alone with your business, you got to stop that. There are a lot of answers that you have inside of you, but you're not going to find them unless you talk it out with someone. And at a certain point in time, your friends and family don't want to hear about it anymore. So please reach out, schedule a 15-minute conversation with me. I have all the links in the notes. Perhaps you're ready for a 2-hour startup strategy session or a 2-hour funding strategy session. It's where I help you really nail down what you need for raising capital. Perhaps you've put together your pitch deck. Maybe it's not landing well and you want to have someone review it. I've raised millions in VC money, thousands in investor money, and I co-host a monthly pitch event competition here in Boston. So I know what investors want to see and hear. And I've got, investor Q&A questions that you may want to download. Let me show you what those look like right here. This is a phenomenal document, especially when you need to filter out the right investors. Those are the right people giving you good money. You do not want to be bringing in folks who do not bring good money and become more of an albatross around your neck. I also invite you to sign up with my monthly newsletter. Tons of great information there. And be sure to hop on over to my meetup group where you'll get alerted to any of our new shows that I'm posting out. It's always, we have Wise Up Wednesday. I'm here Wednesday, midday, sharing a great story, a great founder who has got great expert advice for you. And of course, every Friday, like right now with AJ, I'm always talking about founders and their journeys and what they're doing to add value to the world that can also help add value to you and your world. So, AJ, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you came in and I had the biggest grin on my face throughout this conversation, because you were your material inside and out, and you are really adding value to startups and small businesses everywhere. Any final thoughts before we end the broadcast?
No, I just really appreciate this opportunity. And if there's anything I can do, I know I've kind of pinged you about some of the events that you're having in any way that I can support. And I just appreciate this opportunity.
Excellent. And I'll just part with this wonderful, yay, Blair. Thank you. And definitely, who wouldn't want to tune into Anthony's podcast? Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, AJ, for joining me. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Startup Life live show. Your host, Ande Lyons, signing out and reminding you to stay focused, stay strong, and remember, you've got this. Cheers, everyone. Mwah.
See ya.